Bum, bum, bum. Oops.
Welcome back. We just caught Jim singing in the background. This is a Celtic State of Mind. There might be a wee bit of singing later on, Jim. Who knows? I'm Paul John Dykes. This is Jim Orr. We're going to be talking all things Celtic, Champions League, transfer window slamming shut, the meltdown, the Gulf, all that kind of stuff. We'll start off with the Rangers game, Jim. You've not had a chance to talk about it. You've been off for a couple of weeks as per. What did you make of it? Because last season you continually pointed out, quite rightly so, how close the games were last season. Individual games wasn't quite the same this time, was it?
No, it wasn't. I mean, it was lots of pressure, I think, going into last Sunday. There's always pressure in a derby game. And I think with the shambolic transfer window that we had up until the death, I think if we had dropped any points last Sunday, a bit of a meltdown. Maybe not sharks in the car park, but wouldn't have been far off it. But the team are great. They were really, really good. I tend to record the game. I because I can't see the big screen. So if there's any kind of controversial incidents or there's goals and it's all the end of the park and I can't see it when I come back, I'll kind of flick through it to see what happened. But in actual fact, I watched the whole game again when I come back. So I can think of no higher compliment to have actually sat down and watched the whole game again. Apart from the first 10 minutes, it was a bit nervy. But after that, performance is really, really good. Both halves for a change, because I think in the games you alluded to last season, it was mostly good first half and kind of iffy second half, and we just go over the line. But yeah, completely different. Dominated the game. The stats are quite deceptive, as people like to look at the stats on last week. Didn't tell the whole story. I think there was no failures in the team. I think there was some outstanding performance. Paulo Bernardo, I thought was great. So I mean, everything was just really, really good. Really good day. I think the only thing that was a bit more of a talking point was the refereeing, which was just just terrible. I mean, I think in VAR as well, because I mean, everyone seems to talk about this all the time, and in football you've got kind of objective decisions, subjective decisions, and I think VAR was meant to come in and take care of those objective decisions. The ball's over the line, the guy's offside, but we're using such a Mickey Mouse version of VAR, and we've got substandard referees using Etch a Sketch to try and draw lines, and just if that's what we're going to have, why bother? Why bother with VAR? Because it's just a bit of a joke, and then there's beating. I mean, just you watch these games and you just think, what? I mean, there was loads of incidents, and again, it's kind of, it might sound a bit of that kind of entitlement. Oh, you've won the game, why are you complaining, kind of thing. But that is the time that you point out. Just explain something to me, and nobody explains things. It was 4 incidents, 2 for each team, where he should have played advantage. And the 2 times that they had it, he played advantage. The 2 times we had it, he stopped the game. And you think, well, what's your logic there? Yeah. Are you just incompetent, or are you unconsciously biased? Well, what is it? And Willie Collum come in and that kind of blaze of glory that he had. And if he wants to be taken seriously, then things like transparency and things like consistency, you have to do that. I mean, there's a few weeks ago where Dessler scored a goal against St Johnstone, and somebody gave them the explanation during the game. This is why this decision was made, which is brilliant. But you can't pick and choose. You can't say, well, we'll give you the decision one week and not the next. And what I'd like to see, chat to somebody the other day about this, is to improve the overall quality. I would say, ask each manager after every game to pick one decision in the game, just one decision, and ask it to be reviewed by a panel of referees on the Monday. Not for any retrospective punishment, but for training and quality purposes, let's kind of call it that. Try and improve the standard. Because what we had, I think, is that we need to be consistent. And even though we've only had 4 league games in, there's been a few big decisions, and you think, that'll be inconsistent. That'll happen again, and a different decision will be made, even though we've got VAR. And you think, what's the point? So if you're going to try and improve something, I think you have to take some steps to try and monitor what you're doing. And what we had last time was the last guy who was in charge of VAR said, we reviewed 400 decisions and like 5 are wrong. I mean, that's patently nonsense.
Mhm.
And you're never going to improve if you hide your head in the sand to say, we think we're really good. If you make a mistake, you put your hand up and you say, we made a mistake. You know what? We'll try and do better next time and we'll try and learn from that. But I don't see any learning. This is quite an early rant. I don't see any learning. Now, if you go back to the first games of the season there, there's a handball, Conor Barron. Now I'm sitting here with green tinted spectacles. I get that. The guy puts his hand out and the ball hits his hand and it's not a penalty. And VAR don't think it's a penalty. And you're thinking, well, do you want to explain that to me? Do you want to explain why that's not a penalty? And if that's not a penalty, then as long as you're consistent for the rest of the season, then okay, I'm happy with that. And that's a bit about, if Stephen Naismith said at the end of the game, I'd like you guys to look at that decision on Monday and see what you think.
Mm-hmm.
And if a panel of referees look at it and they say, well, because of ABC, it's not a penalty, and we agree with the referee, then that's then publicised to the managers, the players, the fans, other referees. Then we know that's the rule and everyone knows about it and there's no excuses then. So, and I get during the game, things happen really quickly. Referee might miss something, and that's why VAR's there. And if something like that happens again, you've got a VAR guy saying, well, the Conor Barron principle here is that we do this, right? Because that's the Conor Barron principle. And the game the following day was we played Kilmarnock, the Kyogo penalty. Again, green tinted spectacles, that's a stonewall penalty.
Yeah.
So if we have a system to try and improve the quality of referees, when Brendan says, that's the decision I want you guys to look at coming on Monday morning. And if you look at it again and they say, you know what, I think the referee made a mistake there. That's fine. That's fine. We'll hold our hands up. We made a mistake. We'll not do that again. When an incident like that happens again, the Kyogo principle, that's the decision. That'll be a penalty. Or whatever. Just so we know, moving forward, that we know how these things work. And that's the bit that I don't like about VAR. I don't like VAR at all. I don't like a ref. I don't like a second referee. But you need transparency and you need consistency. And if we have that, even though we don't like it, we can say, well, at least it's transparent and at least it's consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we don't have. And that was, you know, I mean, that takes away the shine from last week talking about the game. And the game is great. The game is brilliant. What a performance. What a difference between the start of this season and the start of last season. Because the start of last season, we were kind of winning games, but the performances were pretty poor. But now we've got a defined style, and it's really good to watch. Another thing that helps is getting early goals. For the early goals in all the games, and that gives you confidence and kind of like dents the other team's confidence. So there's going to be games where we don't score early doors or the other team scores first. So hopefully not often, but when that happens, then we'll see how we can cope with that at the time. So yeah, just such a great performance. Other thing, maybe kind of negative, is the songbook. Said this before, just that Super Trooper song in the Get to Heaven When You Die. Just bin it. Just please bin it. You know, the boys bring lots of colour, lots of noise to the games, and they're great, but there's such an extensive Celtic songbook that you can delve into. Some brilliant song. Putting On the Style was on last week, which is great. But, you know, glorifying in people's deaths because they're associated with another team. It's not clever. It's not funny. It's just vile. And it's sick because we're appalled when we hear songs about Jock Stein and Tommy Burns and Johnny Doyle. You know, so we've got absolutely no moral high ground to be on when our fans sing songs like that. And I see young kids are joining in. They've got no idea who Davy Cooper is. No idea at all. So bin it. There's 2 rants. And we're only who are we?
Well, we're 9 minutes in, Jim, but some great points.
Rants.
Great points, and let us know in the comments what you think of Jim's opening salvo. But I've got to agree with you, and on 2 occasions separately, Kevin Graham has brought up the exact same point in relation to that chant, as has JP Mason. We can't tell anybody how to think or how to feel, but personally, I don't think it's becoming of the Celtic fan base. I think there's so much for us to be proud of as a fan base. What these groups bring to Celtic Park is sensational. It's world renowned. People have Celtic Park on their bucket list for a reason, and I don't mind that. I don't mind tourist directors and musicians and actors coming to Celtic Park because they've heard so many good things about it. But as you say there, that if you're going to try and make it even better, just ditch those chants.
Some of the recent songs are fantastic. The whole Ange stuff, all that period in the Jota, all the stuff about him as well, and the putting on the agony has resurfaced. I mean, that's been about for decades and what have you. So, and then the Glasgow Celtic, best in Scotland. It's a brilliant songbook there, and it's just anyway. Rant over. Point
No,
made.
but I constantly go on about the creativity of the Celtic fan base, the artistic nature of all these guys we speak to, going right back to people who appear in your plays, Jim, to musicians and artists and comedians. And I just think there really is, and coming up to tonight, there's another guest on This Is Acsom, who, gravitated towards Celtic, just happens to be a very creative guy. We are better than that song. We really are, Jim. And the tunes that we sing and come up with are far, far better. So I totally agree with you. And by the way, I don't think it's a negative to bring up the VAR, right? Because here's the thing. I don't know if there's an age limit about becoming a referee, right? But this is as ridiculous as the scenario we find ourselves in. I'm a self-proclaimed Celtic supporter, have been my entire life, Jim. If I was to be a phenomenal SFA referee and come through the ranks, would I be given a Celtic v Rangers game? I shouldn't be, because I'm biased, right? Absolutely agree with you. I should never be given a game. I should never be given the responsibility where, because of my bias, unconscious or otherwise, I give a decision against the opposition. And that's the situation we're in, Jim. We know that John Beaton's a Rangers fan. We know that. That's just a fact. So there is going to be conscious or unconscious bias in these scenarios. And you made a great point there. Rangers had a decent first 10 minutes. Celtic scored that early goal. If you chop that off, that can completely change the dynamic of the game. It's not just the goal you're chopping off. It's the entire dynamic of the game that you're changing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, lots of times things are down to fine margins. If that goal's disallowed and they got the park score and they win the game, then that's been huge. But because it didn't happen, then we won 3-0. Then what are you complaining about? You're complaining because I'm not saying that decision was right or wrong. I'm saying I don't really know how they came to that decision. I've seen the pictures, I've seen the lines, I've seen the things getting cropped, I've seen all that kind of stuff. And we're into that kind of forensic detail. And I don't think we should be into that forensic. We just need a better system. Just a better system. And also, I mean, I know it's not an exact science, but the way the groundsman cuts the grass, you saw the lines there. And Souttar's on that line, and Kuhn is not even at the line yet. Then there's a bit about when did Callum kick them? And and I think, and certainly my naivety before VAR came in, you kind of thought VAR would solve all these problems because offside must be dead straightforward. But then there was a bit where Crawford Allen did a wee kind of half-hour PR thing, and you saw the chaos, absolute chaos in the studio. Let's go back, let's do this. What did he do? How was that? And it was just chaotic. And then you realise, well, I suppose it has to be chaotic. It's no as simple as you're sitting on the couch watching it in the telly and the freeze frame, you think, he's offside there. It is more complicated than that. I get that. I totally get that. But all we're going to do is after every single game, we're going to have the same debates. And it's taken away from the football because the football was so good last week. And that's overshadowed all the kind of bad, which is how it should be. But if you're going to have a kind of general chat about the game, Celtic were great, thoroughly deserved their win, 3-0 kind of flattered them a wee bit. Well, worth more than that. But within the game, there's other things that happen that you think we need to tidy that up. And Willie Collum comes in a blaze of glory because he's the best in the universe to do that job. And they've appointed, is it John Moss, who's head of VAR, who I thought was a culture club drummer, but that's giving my age away. So he's English. So he's coming in with no skin in the game. And he must think that. He said, hold on, you're a Rangers fan, you're refereeing the game. I want you to knock yourself out. He must be, if he's got anything to the guy, then he should be saying, look, there's some things here, Willie, you really need to have a rethink about here, And what you're not saying very clearly is that you're not saying referees are biased. You're saying you're putting them into a position where they could be accused of biasness because of the leanings. Yeah. And it goes both ways, whether you're a Celtic fan as well, that we don't want them refereeing the game as well. And I get the point that Scotland's a small country, you don't have many referees, then maybe you extend it a bit. Maybe you look to England or Wales or Ireland and say, well, for maybe certain games. And I know that's not that fair on young Scottish referees who are looking at it thinking, well, that's the pinnacle. I want to referee the Glasgow Derby at Hampden in a cup final. But if you grew up as a Celtic fan, you really shouldn't be getting that game.
No.
You really shouldn't be. And I always like to kind of, rather than talk about other teams, talk about us. If it was a Celtic supporting referee, you shouldn't be anywhere near a Celtic game, mate. And you just replicate that.
Totally agree with that.
All over the place. So it defies logic. I mean, if you knew nothing about football and you come in and you say, right, see that guy there, he supports that team. What? You should, aye, it's all right. And the bit, I mean, the story they tell, time and again, because I wrote a play called Ben the Late Brat Back that focused on the 97-98 season. Rangers' last home game of the season, the referee is going to retire. He's a Rangers fan and says, can I get that game? And the SFA says, aye.
I know.
Knock yourself out.
For his
that game was pivotal.
Song.
That game was pivotal in that. And he added on all this injury time. And at the time, we didn't have a man holding a board up. So we had no idea what injury time was. And he was just, let's keep playing the Rangers score because I want my team to win the league. Mm-hmm. You're the guy officiating. And that'd have been 10 in a row. That's how big it was. So, and that was a self-confessed Rangers fan asking for a Rangers game.
And getting it.
Even to ask for it, your John Moss guy would be saying, what? Who did what? Now that's what we have got. And that's 26 years ago. Now, I'm not saying it's the same now. I don't know if it's the same now because it's not very transparent. Lots of people, Celtic fans, would say it's no changed that much from them. I don't know if it has. But if you've got a head of referee and a head of VAR, a new head of referee, a new head of VAR, and your head of referee apparently has Celtic leanings, now's the time to do it. Mm-hmm. You'll never have a better opportunity than do it. Because you've got somebody who has got, we understand, maybe no, I don't know, Celtic leanings and an English guy. So on you go, guys, sort it out. Because if every other country's got this, why do we not? What's our reason for not having it? Explain that to us. It's if we're saying, well, that's the rules and that's the rules. Okay, fine. Explain to us why you're out of sync with every other association in the world. Explain that to us in the interest of transparency and openness. Tell us why you don't want to change that decision. Right? Well, they call him. If you're listening, obviously a Celtic fan, you must be listening. so tell us why you're not changing that, because surely you move with the times. Because what I said last season is let's just scrap VAR. The fact if the other country's using it, if we don't like it and it's not working, let's be, not a sheep. We don't think it's working very well, we're going to scrap it. Okay, if we scrap it, it means our referees can't referee games including involving VAR in Europe. But you know what? We don't care. This is affecting our game adversely. Let's just scrap VAR. That's almost another rant. Where are we? 12:49.
But the thing with that, Jim, that I agree with is if the referees don't get these bigger gigs because they're not using VAR, they're not getting the updates and the refresher training, so what? It's a side hustle for them anyway. They're not even professional refs. They're not full-time referees. So when I look at the situation, I think sometimes Scotland dumbs itself down, Scottish football. Aye. Dumbs itself down deliberately. We look at it and we think we're tin pot anyway, so we'll just go for this budget version. We've seen better versions in operation in the European games where decisions are made very quickly, and it shows you the graphic, which leaves nothing to doubt. There's nothing to chance. Yeah. This is definitely offside. This is definitely, over the line, etc. And I would say that we need to get to that point. Now, if Scottish football doesn't do it, I think there was a bold statement made by Sean the other week. If Scottish football doesn't do it, Celtic should do it. And I know we could only use it in our home games and it wouldn't be used to overturn any decisions. But if you're ever in a situation again where Brendan Rodgers calls a referee incompetent and we need to get a King's Counsel to represent him, Nick DeMarco has to go up with a dossier of information and explain to the SFA that the likelihood of Rangers never conceding a penalty for that length of time is as likely as Shergar getting found on the moon, right?
Actual mug.
Great product placement. Then would it not be better, right, to actually just provide the details? Here's the Jota goal. Here's the offside against Kuhn. And just say, there you go. Our system's better than yours, and we can prove to you that you got it wrong.
To quote Wham, if you're going to do it right, basically.
Wait a minute, Culture Club and Wham all in the same
It's
show.
it's an 80s podcast today, basically. If you're going to do it right, and we're not doing it right, so why do it at all in that way? You need to change it. Otherwise, we have these conversations, and there's going to be a big decision that's going to be quite serious, and it's going to fit. And if I mean, and again, I'll play devil's advocate here. And I know there was loads of decisions last season that kind of went against us, and we thought that's ridiculous. But two really big decisions were the first Glasgow derby, where Roof scored the goal after Lagerbielke get kind of robbed. The referee on the pitch gave it, and you could say it again if you're trying to be devil's advocate, and if you think, that was a kind of 50-50 one there. If they'd have scored that goal in that game, where we went there with an understrength team, I think we dropped points to St Johnstone the week before. We weren't playing particularly well. They were, playing home fans only. They could have quite easily won that game.
Mm-hmm.
And Beale's maybe still in charge. Maybe they won. So that was a huge decision. Now, thankfully, with my Celtic tinted glasses, he got that one right. So, but it was kind of 50. But when you've got an obvious decision, or a decision that you don't understand, and he gives it the wrong way, then, I just, it's because we've got VAR, things are forensic now, which they never were before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, for me anyway, the bigger picture of this, one of my phrases is, I love football, but I hate what football has become, mainly because of money. But VAR isn't helping it for me either. I enjoyed the football better we didn't have VAR, because one of the things that happens all the time now when I'm watching games is that I'm at the other end of the park last week. But I thought Kyogo might have been offside when they said there's a VAR check. I thought Kyogo must have been offside. And I was annoyed because you thought Kuhn had all that time to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And why would you be offside? And what was the question? there was a good point to this, I think. That's what was the question?
I mean, I think that when you're talking about VAR, you've also got to look at the fan experience.
Oh, VAR, sorry. Button, yeah. Buzz. Yeah, so basically, when he scored, I thought that's offside, right? And then it comes up, there's a VAR check, and then it's disallowed. And I thought it's Kyogo, right? And virtually, maybe not every goal, maybe half the goals that we score these days, I think that might get disallowed for whatever. Maybe somebody like Greg Taylor has advanced too much, and then he's passed it back to somebody, and the next thing it's a goal, and I think Taylor looked offside to me. And you have to wait till they kick off till you say, oh, that's a goal, good. And that's quite a long wait every single game. And obviously they have to check every goal for VAR. And that sucked the enjoyment out of it for me.
Totally.
And the
players, Jim. And the players. You've seen Billy Gilmore last night after he scored a goal. And he's still waiting on the VAR check. And then he's able to celebrate a second time.
Yeah, and it's only when you score a goal from distance that you're fairly confident that that's going to be allowed. When Callum scored last week, when Kyogo scored, you thought, go. And even Maeda scored, I'm thinking, because I think it was Bernardo passed it to Alistair Johnson. I'm thinking, was Alistair Johnson offside there? I know I'm cutting it back, it's fine to me, but I wondered, because I'm at the end of the pitch, I don't know. But that's my thought process now. Every time we score a goal, we're thinking, was that really a goal? Will that be disallowed? And VAR has just ruined it for me. And then that's even before you get into was it the right decision by VAR? Was it consistent with previous decisions? It's just rubbish, basically, VAR.
You can go deeper there, I think, Jim, because we're now in a situation whereby you hate what football's become, but the one thing that remains a constant is the emotional element of the fan base. And the biggest part of a fan's experience in a football ground is when your team scores a goal. Yeah, that's just a fact, and that's always been the same. And we celebrate it like, your old man would have celebrated it back in the day. And then I used to speak to my dad about this, about the fact that they would work real manual jobs. In my father's case, it was down the pit. Yeah. And then at the weekend, you had this opportunity.
Lunchtime Saturday. Most of them work Saturday mornings.
Aye, and went to the game. You're right. And then obviously a pint with the lads and all that. But that ability to be able to show your emotions probably for the first time in the week, and it's in a football stadium watching your team. And now what they're doing is they're drawing you right back, and it's like, wait, don't celebrate, don't get too happy about this, because we might chop it off, we might find something in the VAR check, and I think it has affected that massively.
It's also it's for the benefit of TV, I think, as well, because again, I mean, I mentioned this before, I can't remember if it was on Acsom or not, was the fact that back in the day, you had no idea who scored the goals. There was no PA system, there was no nothing. There was just at half time, a guy went round with letters and numbers and stuck them in a big board, and unless you did the match programme, you didn't know the score. So it's like if it's St Johnstone are playing Rangers and that's Q, and you're waiting for some guy to put Q in a board, and it goes 0, and you say, "Oh, that's 0, 1, I won 1-0." That's how you found things out. You had a radio maybe for the second half, which was good. But you go to games and you come away thinking, "Oh, 1-3-0. I have no idea who scored the goals, no idea at all." Whereas now we've got PSs, but a lot of the thing for me, this is stage match for TV. This makes good TV. Doesn't make good fan experience at the ground. Anyways, it's a bit too negative today. What a performance last week! Brilliant, great, keep going. My message is don't be complacent. That'd be my kind of thing, because my concern would be that we got off to a similar start, maybe not as good start last year results-wise, and we got a kind of decent lead at one point. We got 7-8 points lead at some point after maybe the first round of fixtures. Then we became complacent and we let them back into it. So hopefully we've got a big enough squad, a decent quality squad, that we don't be complacent, and there's enough people to put back and forward. And they're certainly playing within a defined system, which is working really well. And we have to. I mean, I know you were triggering loads of people with your Aberdeen are going to be second type comment, and fair play to you, Mr. Dykes. But I mean, I don't think Aberdeen are going to finish above them at all. I think they've got next to us, they've got the second best squad in the country, and I think they'll get their act together. And what we don't want to do is give them any encouragement, because I think they've been a bit overboard. I think their fans have been a bit overboard with that. So I understand, you're 5 points behind, you're out of Europe. But actual fact, if you look back, we were in the same position when Ange came in. And, losing 3 games in the first 6, including a derby game away from home, knocked out of Europe, the Champions League qualifiers by a bang average team. It was just after COVID, so we went back to full capacity yet. We'd lost the league the previous season. There was a rebuild. All this stuff, but Ange just thought, let's just try and win games of football and see where that takes us. And for the next derby, and unfortunately that was postponed. And then the next derby was a game under the lights in February. We won that, we never looked back. So we need to be careful, because if I'm Philip Clement, that's what I'm thinking. Let's just concentrate on winning all these games against teams they should beat.
What can happen? I think people can absolutely capitulate, Jim, even though, like you say there, you look at the squad and you go, right, it's a strong squad. But if the element of doubt keeps in and the mentality is not quite right, and there's a culture around the dressing room or on the training pitch where they're maybe looking up to their captain or not, as the case may be, and thinking, well, he doesn't believe, so, and then there's a lack of belief in it. My comment around Aberdeen, many ways, it's about giving other teams in Scotland a fit up the backside and saying, you are underachieving and you have done for years. Go and do something. But what I find hilarious is that you've now got Rangers fans arguing, saying, no, we're the best, second best. We're the second best, no Aberdeen. And that shows you how things have changed as well.
I think, again, you're playing devil's advocate. I think they're in a bad place just now. And from a football rivalry point of view, then if your main rival's in a bad place, then you've got that banter and all that, and the same would happen if the situation was reversed. So that's just all kind of part and parcel of the game. But I mean, I saw the highlights of Ross County Aberdeen, and Aberdeen were lucky to come with a victory there. Ross County missed a penalty, Aberdeen got a late goal, whatever. So I think even though you might have a bit of disharmony in a squad, whatever, I think they've got enough quality to say off the other teams, and maybe. It'd be surprising if they drop. I mean, if they go to Tannadice and drop points next week, I might revise my opinion. But I think, they cuff Ross County. They cuff Ross County 6-0 the other week. Easy peasy, and Aberdeen struggled. So I just think that the top two are so far ahead of everyone else. I think they've got off to a bad start. We just make sure that we're not complacent. Don't give them any credit. Don't think that they've got no chance. They'll sort themselves out. And obviously the fact that they're playing at Ibrox doesn't help them and whatever. So I thought I get back to last week. I thought we were the best team by miles, but we can't just think, well, they're not a danger. If we start thinking like that, then we may end up what happened last season, that we shot ourselves in the foot. So let's just keep playing the way we're playing, good style of football. The new signings look to be, of a kind of good standard. They'll come in, improve the team, and if anyone's dipping in form, then we've got guys that to take their place, which is really encouraging. I thought the bench looked really strong last week. I like Luke McCowan. I think he'll be the surprise guy. I think he'll come in and do really well. Give us that wee bit of dig that when you think he score a few goals as well. Ingles looks a quality player. Valley, looks not bad as well. And Trusty, we'll have to see what he's like. Don't know too much about him. So yeah, I mean, everything in the Celtic garden is pretty rosy at the moment. That'd be my one, and obviously the manager would be saying the same thing. Let's not be complacent. We made a great start. Let's just keep it going, because we won't get through every game not conceding a goal. We won't go through every game scoring the first goal, scoring an early goal. So, and we'll sort of cross those bridges when we come to them.
The big thing for me, you mentioned the gaffer there. I truly believe he wouldn't allow it to happen, Jim. I don't think he would allow the team to become complacent. And one of the things I would point out as well, and this is focusing on Celtic, the way that we respect the opposition. And you go back to last season where we were referred to as the other mob. And then just yesterday, I'm watching an interview with a Rangers player who they couldn't get out of the building quickly enough, ex-Rangers player calling us the others. And you think, is that the culture in and around Ibrox where you can't even utter our name? It's not like we're Beetlejuice and we're going to appear in front of you if you say it 3 times. I find that embarrassing, Jim. And I think that Brendan Rodgers wouldn't allow us to become complacent or even too cocky about the position we might find ourselves in this season. And I'm pretty confident he wouldn't allow that to happen. He wouldn't allow anybody in the dressing room to say, Aberdeen are going to finish second. He just wouldn't allow that to enter any of the players' minds. I think McGregor's the same.
I think we're very fortunate to have somebody like Callum McGregor who speaks extremely well. These are all, the other thing you have to remember is these are all just young guys in their early 20s. Maybe some of them haven't had media training or whatever, and they're maybe influenced by what other players say, that we should never say Celtic in interviews. And because also things are so forensic these days that we're all kind of body language experts and reading things into what people are saying. At the end of the day, that doesn't bother me that much. Teams can say what they want to say. But how you do your talk on the pitch, that's what Callum McGregor keeps saying. And as long as, talk is cheap, and names will never hurt you and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that doesn't bother me. I think we do, we're talking on the pitch, and when people start making excuses, the whole Souness thing, to me, that's just making excuses. If that's what you believe, knock yourself out. You're going to lose the next game 3-0 as well, if that's what you believe. Because the stats are deceptive. I know, apologies to Alan Morrison, the stats are deceptive at times. But we're playing again, trying to keep this a positive podcast, because I said some negative stuff earlier. But I just think we're playing really well, and they're good to watch. And there seems to be a good, likeable group of players that we've got. And even the players that some fans have got down the road, like Scales and Taylor, they were outstanding.
They were brilliant.
Taylor, I think I said last time on the podcast, Taylor's outstanding. Just how he plays in that system. It's great. He might not be the best technical player in the world. He might not be the fastest, biggest, or the best cross in the world, but actually he fits into that system. And he's an important cog in there. I know we've signed this young Barcelona guy, but I'd be surprised if he plays that as well as Greg. He might be better, physically, speed-wise, a bit of cross and all that kind of stuff, but certainly within the system, because get back to the Lisbon Lions, you don't have to have 11 exceptional players. You can, if you've got 2 or 3 really good players, or very good players, and you've got a good team structure, and people know what they're doing, then you become a good team. You become more than the sum of the parts, which is what we've got just now. Because in an ideal world, people wouldn't pick Scales, wouldn't pick Taylor, but they do a fantastic. Scales was faultless last week, absolutely faultless.
Yeah,
and also a number of times you pass a ball, in dangerous positions. I mean, we're, kind of, when you're playing 5-a-sides or walking through, one of the times you make mistakes, basic passes, you're there, 60,000 people, and you're playing balls to your goalkeeper, where their forwards like 5 yards away from him. I mean, that has to be pinpoint accuracy.
Yeah.
The number of passes that Skills has to make in a game. Is it something like, was it every game he's something like 80 or 90 touches to the ball? Now, maybe a lot of that he could maybe do better, but he hasn't made any really, really bad passes when we're trying to keep possession, and that takes immense concentration, especially in front of 60,000 people who are baying for your blood. Because as soon as you make one mistake, it's like, I told you. I told you. He's got a mistake in him. He's 90 touches.
You could make the same mistake as Carter Vickers, but the reaction would be different. And that's the perception of a lot of fans. But I totally agree with you. And we started our kind of Monday show talking about Liam Scales. Liam Scales will be lining up tomorrow night against England for Ireland. And you look at the turnaround in that player's career, from probably getting shipped out to Aberdeen if they could have found the money at the time, Jim. And it was a poor Aberdeen side who had been beaten by Darvel, to being a mainstay in that defence. And the defence has looked solid this season with big Schmeichel behind us as well. So I think Scales and Taylor are the two. They're the two guys they're the whipping boys at the moment, Jim. But I think Valle will definitely push Taylor's performance levels up, because it's always great to have
Valle, is that how you pronounce that? I said Valle.
Apparently.
Valle. All right.
Valle,
right.
Yeah, the Spanish-speaking Acsom listeners corrected us straight off the bat.
Valle.
Absolutely. Valle.
How about Carter Vickers? Just mentioned him there. In that nervy first 10 minutes, he kicked the ball out the park under no pressure.
I saw that.
And it was like, that's all right, it's Carter Vickers. The Scales would be like,
I know.
What are you doing?
Remember, Peter Grant and Anton Rogan. You're talking about teams, the centenary team. Grant and Rogan used to get it tight.
Aye.
They got it tight.
Aye, and it's just I think we have to appreciate the times that we're in just now. That they are great times to be a Celtic fan. And they're going to be wee bumps in the road here and there. But for the 90 minutes, you support the team and you don't criticise the team when the games are going on. After the game, if you want to go at them online and podcasts and phone-ins and blogs, not to sell out, but during the game, you need to keep behind the team all the time. And I think there's times when maybe a Scales or a Taylor mistake and there's audible groans. And you pick yourself up, son, get on with the game, you're doing fine. And just it's been great. It's been a great start to the season. And the international breaks are pain in the backsides. I mean, I think, again, I can feel a rant coming on. Somebody has to look at them.
They come so early in the season, Jim.
Why don't we have something like, from memory, we have something like 4 international breaks where they play 2 games? Why can't they play 4 games and 2 international breaks over a fortnight or something? It's too stop, start. And it's domestic football that generates the money. Mm-hmm. It's not international football. And they're taking, the team's players away. And these are expensive assets. And who could get injured in international duty, and I mean, I didn't go. I mean, I'm a big Scotland fan. Didn't go last night because for me, I don't like friendlies, and I think this Nations League is just a glorified friendly competition. So that's too many games. They should scrap that Nations League. So I think there has to be a bit more debate because players are playing too many games. Mm-hmm. They have been for a number of years, and they said, let's not play friendlies, but let's have a daft wee competition instead of the friendlies. Let's a daft wee competition. The Euros and the World Cup, that's enough.
That's all. That's
enough.
Yeah.
If you want to have, some sort of training camp or something like that, maybe now and again, maybe if a winter break they're going. I don't know, but it's just having 4 international breaks is too much, particularly early in the season, and so quickly. That's one in September. There we had, and I don't know. Anyway, bit of a rant today.
No, I agree with that. I mean, obviously, I kept an eye on it. I was watching with interest how, again, talking about another whipping boy. A whipping boy of that Scotland team seems to be Tony Ralston. Okay, gave away the penalty, but I thought he played really, really well. But even the commentators are so keen just to get jumping on a player like that. There was a couple of things I'm looking at last night, Jim, in terms of topical discussions for Celtic. And I'm thinking, a discussion that we had with Tosh McKinley a few weeks ago on This Is Acsom. He said, this, Paul, I played just as well for Dundee as I did for Hearts, and I played just as well for Hearts as I did for Celtic. but it was when I signed for Celtic that I got my first cap. Do you think Luke McCowan, I know we're very strong in the midfield area, it's the strongest area of the team. Do you think Luke McCowan could push his way into the considerations of Stevie Clarke?
In time, if he gets game time, of course. I mean, I called up Conor Barron, which again, that kind of
what did you call it? The Conor Barron principle? I was thinking the Conor Barron doctrine. There you go. Imagine
if you do that,
Barron,
that's the Conor Barron principle. We do that. Anyways, yeah, that's always been. I mean, Tosh is right. That's always been the case, and I think that kind of, in actual fact, I suppose if you're the Scotland manager, if you're to pick a St Johnstone player, people might question why you're picking a St Johnstone player. I mean, back in the day, back in the 80s, 80s reference again, when Dundee United and Aberdeen were really good teams, you would be picking 4 or 5 Aberdeen players, 3, 4 Dundee United players, and no one bat an eyelid. You're not going to pick those players just now. And I think when you go to a bigger club, it's a kind of affirmation that I've made the right choice here. So I always recall, I was involved with kids football for the guts of 20 years, and for a couple of years, I can help to run a kind of Glasgow Select, and you had trials, and you had something like 60 kids would come along. These are all kids in primary 7, you had 12-year-old kids, and the standard was really high. So how do you whittle 60 kids down to 18? Say, so when you have a couple of trials, there's something just obvious. You kind of, although Aidan McGeady didn't play for that team, but if your Aidan McGeady turns up, you're thinking, well, he's one of the 18 straight away. So you might get down to about 12, and then the other 6 to try and fill those. And you might have maybe 20 kids. You're thinking, well, we need to pick 6 of these 20 kids. And then you find out he plays for Celtic Boys Club and he plays for Rangers Boys Club. He doesn't play for anyone. That makes you think, oh, somebody else has actually looked at the kid and thinks, because a trial, how do you know how? I mean, you could have a good trial, a bad trial. So that would influence me, the fact that they played for boys clubs and these guys. So that would, so in the same way, well, if somebody plays for Celtic, they must be good.
Yeah.
Get them in the team. So that's my kind of theory behind. And also the fact that if you play for the big, let's call them the big 2, if you play for the big 2, you're playing in front of 50, 60,000 people every second week. You're under more pressure. And if you survive there, then you should be able to survive internationally. And given the lad Conor Barron is due, although the team haven't played particularly well, he's looked to be the best player in those games. So I can understand why he's maybe picked. And there's so few Scottish players playing for the top 2. So it's understandable that if you do come in, you get a bit of game time and show what you've got, then yeah, I think that's point. And that's, I mean, as Tosh said back in the day, but I mean, if Tosh had went to Dundee United and Aberdeen at that time, then he'd have a better chance than Dundee. Dundee were not one of the better teams, not any better than they are just now, a kind of middle ranking kind of team. So if you play for the bigger teams, then obviously you've got a better chance of playing international football.
Yeah, I was also looking at the fact, I think anyone who watches Scotland, even casually, a casual observer, will notice that we need some new blood in the central defensive areas. And I was thinking to myself, you know what? And it's not, I'm not saying he should be picked. Stephen Welsh at 24 should be looking at his football career and thinking, that's the level I should be involved in. I should be playing regular football and pushed my way into a Scotland international team. I mean, he captained under 21s not that long ago. He's now 24 and he's nowhere near the team. And that's the area, or one of the areas, that I think we're really lacking. I'm going to bring in some of these comments. Thanks everybody for getting involved. It's 1,000 strong. We've had 2 rants already and even more 80s references from Jim. How many more can we fit in the next 15 minutes?
I'll think about that. Right.
Yeah, try your best. Ridiculizer, here you go. Just to mix things up a bit. I must stop this revisionism before it begins. Rodgers, an elite manager, we've discussed this for years, you and I, Jim, took a season to destroy a flying machine, turn it into a jalopy or a jalopy. Now weaker than when Ange was in charge. Our Champions League chances are Edvard Munch. Right, here's the thing. I don't 100% subscribe to this. And it came into the conversation a few days ago, Jim. I don't think we were great for the last 4 to 6 months under Ange. I think there was a first half performance against Kilmarnock where we absolutely trounced them. That was the day when, away from home, Kyogo missed the penalty and just laughed because we were winning 4 or 5-0 at the time. Yeah. And after that, I can't remember us being that, free-flowing vehicle that, you think back to Ange and instantly you go, oh, great football under Ange, really, really entertaining. I'm not going to say the wheels came off because we won a treble, but it seemed to run out of steam a bit near the end of his tenure. And I feel that, along with a really, really poor transfer window, started off the tenure of Brendan Rodgers in such a way where it took us a while to get back up to speed. And I think we did get back up to speed near the tail end of last season. So I don't think it's as simple as saying Ange is better than Brendan. Brendan has managed elite sides. He's managed elite players. The question around whether he's an elite manager is just a debate, and we'll all have opinions about it, Jim. But I do think that there was almost like a hangover after Ange left, but we've overcome that, and we're now seeing the style that Brendan wanted to implement. He might not have had the players that he wanted to make that style come to fruition, and I think he does now.
I can partly agree with you and partly agree with Ridiculizer in that we kind of loved Ange and we loved Jota and we loved Matt O'Reilly and we loved the whole thing and the Japanese guys coming in, and there was maybe the start of Ange's second season up to maybe the February. It was peak Ange. Winning the League Cup final was that bit. They were knocking them out of the Scottish Cup in the semi-final, and the whole talking about atmosphere in the songbook, whatever. Some of the best atmospheres, the game under the lights, whatever. It was just brilliant, actually, really. And it's really sad that he went. And yeah, things did kind of tail off a little bit. And yes, Brendan had a difficult time coming in. And I said at the time that I felt it was a lacked imagination, the appointment. And I felt the first 2 or 3 months, I thought, well, I was kind of right, because he did. I mean, I totally understand why he left the first time, and I agree. If I was him, I'd have left under the circumstances. But the fans were mixed with him coming back, so there was that kind of feeling as well that he hadn't really got everyone back on board. But I think the last 2 months of last season got people on board. I think the start of this season is just re-emphasised that as well. That we're all on the Brendan. We're all fully behind Brendan. He's got them playing really well. He's got them playing a good style of football, similar to what Ange did at peak Ange. Is Kuhn as good as Jota? No, he's not. No yet. But who knows? He might be. But Hatati's now coming back to the form he showed under Jan Briggs. Hatati last season, due to injuries, wasn't picked. He said it wasn't peak Hatati. So if you compare the two teams, where are we just now that's not as good as where we were before? And I'd say Jota. Mm-hmm. I'd say Starfelt was a bit better than Scales. I see Schmeichel's like an upgrade in Joe Hart. And Matt O'Reilly couldn't get a game under Ange. He was playing Moy most of the time. And at the time, it was obvious that Matt O'Reilly wanted to leave because he wasn't getting a game. So Moy was in there. So it's not as if you're comparing to Matt. You're not comparing. So peak Matt O'Reilly is not under Ange, it's under Brendan. So I think if you pick two teams there, I think the one thing that we're not as good as maybe Jota over Kuhn and likely Starfelt over Scales. But in terms of the style of football now, we're playing pretty good style of football. I think the players have now bought into what the manager's doing. So yeah, I mean, I don't think, as I said before, I'm very optimistic now. The chats we had up until 2 weeks ago, last time I was on, were pretty much what a shambolic transfer window. Yeah, we're playing quite well in the park, but I'm not too sure. We get through the first four games, full points, no goals against, playing lovely football, and I've signed some quality players. So I think we're getting towards peak Ange. In terms of elite managers, as you said, define elite. We've had this chat before. It's not worth having another chat again. People have different views what constitutes elite. But you can't deny the fact he's managed an elite club in Liverpool and has loads of experience. So in terms of the best manager we could have at this point in time, I think he's up there because other managers might not have had the impact that he's had, and likely cost us a lot more than he had because they'll be even more eliter, if that's a word. So, yeah.
we've also got Andy Lee saying it's the Conor Barron ultimatum. You've
Ultimatum.
started something here, Jim. No, I agree in that Jota has never been replaced, and it was one of the areas that one of the only real disappointments of the transfer window. And
Also, there's one. Could he be replaced? Could we find somebody as good as Jota, with the personality of Jota and everything? The kind of
it was a whole package, yeah.
You know, we're not going to get that.
No. So I think, you know, and I'm not comparing Kuhn to Jota, but he's a winger. I think Kuhn, we can work on him. We can craft a player out of Kuhn, and I think he's shown enough in the early part of this season to suggest he could be one of the star men. Others are completely in agreement with you, Jim, saying that McKeown's going to be a surprise this season. I want to touch on something you said there about Graham Souness. Sorry to bring his name up, but you started it. See, when you've got somebody coming out who apparently is an intelligent football pundit, and he talks about Rangers bringing in 4 players for £50 million combined. That's like me coming out and saying during the transfer window, Celtic should buy 4 players for £50 million each. It's so ridiculous, Jim. And you know, there's no way Celtic could do that simply because, financially it's not possible. Similarly, there's no way Rangers could do that because financially it's not possible. So I asked myself the question, is he at the wind-up or does he just not know Scottish football? And if he doesn't know Scottish football to the degree where he thinks Rangers could spend £50 million on 4 players, why is he being asked for his opinion? Because I think Martin O'Neill pulled him up about it, and he said he was deluded, and he was right. He was 100% right in his sentiment, Martin O'Neill. But I wouldn't even ask the man for his opinion on Scottish football if that's the nonsense he's coming away with.
Yeah, I mean, I think game by game, you can always make an argument for things. If we'd have scored that goal early, if we'd have done this, we'd have done that, it might have been a different game. Totally get it. I have no idea about the £50 million comment. It just seems ridiculous to say such a thing. Because there's a lot of work needed both on and off the pitch on the other side of the city. And they know that, as you said, we don't have that kind of money. Even well, we actually do have that kind of money. They don't have that kind of money unless there's some, Arab sheik about to come in and invest silly money in them. But even that, you're not going to invest that kind of money in Scottish football. And it's such a ridiculous thing to say. And I don't understand why he would say it. Obviously, it's hurting after the way the game went the other week. Because I think, as I said, or you said, that I said at the start of the podcast, that last season, results-wise, they weren't that far away. And you're starting the season with a kind of blank slate, and you're thinking, well, we could go there and maybe do something, and they didn't, and they were just abysmal. And I think it's hurting, and he's looking for ways to kind of soothe that hurt by coming up with some quite silly statements. Don't mind him saying things about games on the park and his interpretation of things like that, but when you talk about that kind of number of money, that doesn't exist.
No. It was a nonsense statement, and he's getting called out for it, and quite rightly so. We've got the Champions League all lined up. All the fixtures have been announced, Jim. We've got the squad announced. There was maybe a few eyebrows raised around young Odin Holm being left out of the squad. The surprise last year was Nawrocki. He was left out. He's in this time round. Where does it leave a player like Holm, though? I mean, it seems quite unusual that we don't loan him out during the transfer window and we don't pick him for the Champions League squad. So either he's good enough or he's not. And I know there's the homegrown rule, and Adam Montgomery's in there, and he's probably not going to get much game time unless it's an emergency. But Odin Holm must be looking at himself thinking, I've regressed, because last season I was in the squad and I was playing games in the Champions League.
I think with some of the competition has been upped a bit. You're not going to pick Odin Holm over the established midfield, never mind Luke McKeown or Engels coming in. So there's not a lot of space to be played. I think we have to trust the manager. I think he's earned that trust in that last part of last season, the start of this season. I mean, who knows? Difficult job trying to manage a squad. What's the squad these days? At 25, 26?
25 for Europe, 25. Yeah.
No, but in terms of the whole squad we've got, what's the first team squad? Is it 30?
If you've got about 30, if you were to include guys like the seldom seen Liam Shaw, you've got about 30. Yeah.
Right. So it must be hard to kind of whittle that down to the numbers for Europe. It's hard to see where Holm's going to get any game time domestically, never mind in Europe. Because the Falkirk game coming up, you think, well, that's a League Cup game. That's the game where you play Luke McKeown and Engels and maybe the the other goalkeeper and stuff like that. So is home going to get a game that day? I doubt it. So he's not going to get a game that day. No chance of Europe. So you have to. He's a big squad, so you can only pick so many. So that's just one of these things. That's the way football goes. There's it's very competitive. You have to take your chance when you get your chance. And he's maybe not been given many chances. I like him. He looks neat and tidy. Anytime he's come on the park, he's a good passer of the ball. He gets stuck in. He's good. He's just. I think Alan Morrison talks about 900 minutes. 900 minutes to assess whether somebody's any good or not. He's not going to get 900 minutes. So how do you assess whether he's any good or not? And if you just paid, whether it's a guts of 11 million quid, you're not putting in front of him. And you've got Hatati's back on his game. Carl McGregor's been outstanding this season. Paulo Bernardo's come in and my poor eyesight, he looks like Matt O'Reilly from a distance. And the way he played last Sunday, he
was excellent.
He was Matt O'Reilly, so he's got the jersey. Bernardo just now, and even though we've signed the guy for £11 million, it's difficult not to play the guy, but I wouldn't drop Bernardo because I think he was great. You're not going to drop a Hatati or Calum. So Holmes, miles away.
He's miles off. You're right. He is. And you're right there also about having a jersey, right? So you're bringing in a Barcelona prospect who were being told, because I wanted to sing the song, Robert, just like you said, Into the Valley. Kevin Graham says it's not a V, it's a B. So it's buy or buy. Come on. Gives a wee bit of artistic creative.
He's a poet.
He knows what he's talking about.
He gets to rhyme things, maybe sometimes, occasionally.
Yeah, you can mispronounce something to rhyme them as well. But, he's pushing for the jersey. You've got Engels pushing for maybe Bernardo's or Hatati's jersey. And you've got Trusty, £6 million centre-half, pushing for probably Liam Scales's jersey and position in the team. And I think it's really, really healthy. And I'm glad. And by the way, Neil, I'm just going to bring this up because obviously it's the crack, it's the banter, it's the patter, isn't it, Jim? But I want to talk to you about Engels, because we were talking maybe last season. Arnie Engels comes in, he's 20-year-old. We spend £11 million on him. So the whole package is obviously massive. It's a massive investment, Jim. And you, last season, used to speak about we can't really be signing players for 10 million quid. But you kind of changed. You thawed out a wee bit during that transfer window because you were saying, about Adam Ida. I don't think he's worth that kind of money, but he's the right player. The manager wants him, go and buy him. What do you make of an £11 million record-breaking signing like Engels?
I think it's all about timing, really. I think that if we'd have been a bit better with the recruitment, I mean, all the players that we've signed apparently all wanted to come and have done for a while. And the personal terms were all fine for a while. So I don't understand why we didn't go in at the start of June and say to Norwich, there's £5 million for Ida. If you don't want it, we're going to sign somebody else. Or Engels and say, there's £7 million. If you don't say it, we'll just go and sign someone else. We waited to the last possible minute, and the other teams held all the cards.
Yeah.
So we want these in, and you just sold Matt O'Reilly for 30 million. So we're holding all the cards. You're desperate and you're cash rich. So we want even more for so we've paid well over the odds for Ida and well over the odds for Engels. But in the context of bringing in £30 million first, that's why we've done that. I think if we don't bring in £30 million, we're not going to those kind of numbers. I think, and it's just a timing thing. And I think, if you fast forward a year, 2 years time, if we try to sign players, I don't think we'll go for somebody at £8.5 million again, unless timing with somebody else that we just sold. I don't think off the bat we would risk that amount of money, and I'm okay with that, because how do you know what a player's worth? But the good thing was that these are the two players that Brendan Rodgers wanted, and he's got them, and it's cost us over the odds to get them. But hey ho, that's the way it goes because of a poor recruitment team and a poor recruitment effort over the summer. And the manager said that. It's not as if I'm trying to be negative about that. We should have had all those players in at the start of June, and they should all went to America, and it would have cost us less. And because we have a poor recruitment team or a non-existent recruitment team, it's ended up costing us more. But the good thing, and I said this, I think about a month ago, is if we got to the 2nd of September and we hadn't dropped any points in the league, then that's okay to sign people late. And this takes me back to, this is the podcast arc, takes me back to the very first thing I said, was the fact that if we hadn't got the full points last Sunday, the fans would have been happy, and the recruitment and all that stuff would have been brought up again.
Yeah.
But we got the points, and everything in the Celtic garden is rosy, and we've got a really exciting season to look forward to.
The big thing for me, Jim, and we kind of touched on this before the end of the transfer window, and you're spot on that the whole view of where we are right now could almost hinge on that result last weekend, because we go through the previous season's aftermath and we talk about it, and we're looking at aspirations for the following campaign. We then know that we've got a transfer window, we've got a Champions League draw, and we've got the first Rangers game of the season, and the anxiety levels and the stress levels and all that is really, really high. And then we come through all that. We know who we're playing in Europe. We know who we've signed in the transfer window, and we're beating Rangers. And like you say, we sit back and go, all right, we can relax now. Everything's
It's almost
cool.
like having played a game where we've been rubbish for 89 minutes, we scored the winner in the last minute, and we've won the game, and you think, well, that's a game won. All the previous 89 minutes of stress and anxiety doesn't really matter. And I'm pretty sure if you go through every single podcast that's been on for the past 2 months, up until a week ago, it'll be not negative, but there'll be a lot of kind of frustration and anxiety and whatever. But the result last week, coupled with the signings, coupled with a fairly favourable Champions League draw, everything in the garden's rosy, and long may that continue.
Yeah, we're happy. We've finished it off with a positive state of mind. Now, back in the 80s, because we're talking about the 80s, Jim Orr used to be mistaken for a young Gordon Strachan. Now, Gordon Strachan's going to be joining John Hartson and myself on stage at Barazat and Design in October. The tickets are flying. It's going to be a great night. I'm really looking forward to it, because Gordon has a presentation when he does these kind of nights. Big screen. He talks about certain things that have happened, and you can see it visually, and it works really well, and I'm looking forward to it. So why not join us for a night out with Acsom? The ticket link is underneath this video. I've got to thank everybody again for joining us.
Also, just mention before you finish, last night, Jerry Taylor, first performance of his Blame It on the Bucky out in Bathgate, standing ovation. So well done, Jerry. He's had to overcome a lot of personal challenges, which he's been very open about. So, yeah, really glad to hear that. So, and he's on at Webster's this Sunday night for the next instalment of Blame It on the Bucky.
Fair play to Jerry. And there's still tickets for the Gracies gig, I believe, as well, because he's going to be doing a show in Glasgow. Well done. I love to see people flying in their chosen field. So well done, Jerry. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. And once again, Jim Orr, thank you for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Cheers, Paul.